Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause, please, for Fargani from Meta, who's going to run us through this workshop. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I know we had breakfast. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Great, that's much better. So yes, my name is Fargani Tambeayuk, and I work for Meta. I lead our work on connectivity policy across Africa. And many thanks to Extensia for really giving us this platform to share some thoughts on where we see the future of the internet going. So I'm going to share a couple of slides with you, our perspective on where we're going as a world when it comes to the internet, and some key things that as Tanzania, as Africans, we need to put in place to ensure that the next evolution of the internet doesn't pass us by, to ensure that our people fully harness all of the social and economic opportunity that will come from the next iteration of the internet, which is the Metaverse. Who here hasn't heard of the Metaverse? Who here has heard of the Metaverse? Okay, I see you paying attention. All right, great. So So what is the Metaverse? So for us, we see the Metaverse as a set of digital spaces which would include immersive 3D experiences that are interconnected. The defining quality of the Metaverse would be that sense or that feeling of presence. So imagine we were all having this conference within the Metaverse from our homes. While we'll put on our virtual reality headsets and we'll be connecting from our homes, we'll feel like we're next to each other while we're separated by distance. It's also allow you to feel like you're right there next to the person that you're in the Metaverse with, or if you're putting on a headset and you want to go to Zanzibar, for instance, you'll feel like you're in Dar es Salaam, but it'll feel like you're actually in Zanzibar because it's of that immersive nature. It will feel like we're inside the internet rather than looking at it through our devices. So right now, when we're accessing the internet, you look at it through either your phone, your TV, your laptop. It's like a 2D experience, so you're looking at a flat surface. But with the Metaverse, it will feel like you're immersed in it. It will feel like you're inside the internet. So it will feel like now when you're in a website, when you're navigating from one website to the other, from the Metaverse, you'll be navigating from one environment to the other. So it's just like you put on your headset, you're now in this conference, that you want to move to Zanzibar, you just click on a button and you transport it to Zanzibar, and you feel like you've actually moved from this conference to Zanzibar. So that's how it is. It's going to be really immersive. You have that sense of presence, that feeling of presence. So mainframe computing is like, for those that remember, it's when you had computers in big houses or big rooms, and very few people actually used such computing such computing devices. I see from the room, no show of hands, so we're all extremely young, so that's good to know. But who here remembers a time when we had personal computing, where you had your PC, whether it's in the house or in your office, and you couldn't really move around with it? Okay. So I say a lot of you are my age mates. It's good to know. Okay, then so we moved from mainframe computing to personal computing. Then we now moved on to the mobile internet. So we're all accessing the internet now through our phones, through our laptops. Now, wherever we are, so a lot of us have left our homes, our offices to be here present, but we're still connected to our work. We're still connected to the people that we love through the mobile internet. And as you know, that really transformed the way we live. So rather than in the past when we used to have to be in a specific location to do work, now we can work while on the go. We can communicate with our loved ones while on the go. So the mobile internet really revolutionized and transformed our lives. And if you remember, there was a time when it was mostly voice or text. Who remembers that time? Oh, some people were not old enough. I'm seeing, yes. But yes, there was a time when it was mostly voice text. Then the internet became faster. We had the mobile smartphones. Pictures became a way of us communicating. And then video came, and now most times with COVID, a lot of us transitioned to actually using a lot of video conferencing for our meetings, for connecting with our loved ones because we couldn't travel. So the metaverse is really going to be the next evolution of the internet. And it's important that all of us here in the room, the policymakers, the regulators, industry, we all take the necessary steps to ensure that this doesn't pass us by. So that's why we thought it's really important we come and share what we think about the metaverse and ensure that we start having those conversations and putting in place the building blocks for the metaverse. So this is the ecosystem as we see it. There will be a lot of things that we'll need to do, or there are a lot of things that will need to be in place before the metaverse becomes mainstream. You'll need to have the right devices. We envisage that you'll be able to connect to the metaverse through existing devices, but there will be new form factors, new types of devices like the virtual reality headsets or the augmented reality glasses. So those are things that are already existing, are becoming more mainstream. There will be a need for creators, so we'll need the Tanzanian developers to start building for the metaverse. We'll need our software engineers to start creating content for the metaverse. Our entertainers will need to start creating those experiences that people in Tanzania, people across Africa, across the world can enjoy the rich Tanzanian culture, the rich African culture. So we need to start building content for the metaverse. In addition to that, you need platforms, so different types of platforms, whether it's identity platforms for financial services, because a lot of commerce would happen within the metaverse. But a key building block is connectivity. And when I saw some of the presentations yesterday of all the things that different industry partners, especially those in Tanzania, are doing to enable connectivity, it shows that at least within Tanzania, within Africa, there's that foundation, but we need to make sure that beyond that foundation, we really put in place the right connectivity to enable Africans to fully leverage the metaverse. And a lot of that has to do with fiber connectivity backbone, and I'm pleased to see all the developments that are happening within that space in Tanzania. But we also need a lot of wireless connectivity, Wi-Fi. I remember yesterday there was a comment about someone doing something very intensive and using all the Wi-Fi bandwidth, others couldn't connect. So imagine that immersive experience that you're trying to access, but you're not able to access it because the Wi-Fi in your location isn't great. And that's why we think it's really important that we have this conversation today, because Wi-Fi is a key building block for the metaverse. And if we don't allocate or we don't give more spectrum to Wi-Fi, then the people in Tanzania, the people in Africa wouldn't be able to access the sort of metaverse experiences that people in the West, in Europe, in the US will be accessing. There are also some core technologies. Augmented reality is one of those core technologies that will really bring to life the metaverse. And for those that don't know what augmented reality is, it's a technology that overlays digital images or animations on the user's view of the real world. So here we see students or kids learning about dinosaurs, and you have that overlay of dinosaurs, and they're learning and really coming to know what dinosaurs were all about. We also see engineers working, and they're using augmented reality interfaces to collaborate. And here we have like a designer, a real estate interior designer using augmented reality to know how to design your house. So these are already things or applications that are being used in the world today. And these are some of the technologies that will really bring to life the metaverse. Another core technology is virtual reality. And here, virtual reality is the use of computer modeling and simulation that enables a person to interact with a simulated environment that can be explored in 360 degrees. So these are really 3D. Oh, sorry. Okay, cool. Yeah, so here we're seeing, again, this simulation of someone using it to explore, to learn or to diagnose medical diagnosis, someone learning about planets, and so on and so forth. You've seen an engineer putting on a headset and learning about how to engineering and designing a car. So the applications are numerous. I want us to think about, so imagine this. Imagine Diamond. Who here doesn't know Diamond? Okay. Yeah, imagine Diamond wanting to perform, showcase Tanzanian culture across Africa, across the world. Nowadays, he has to do his concerts here, but he also has to go travel across Africa, across the world to showcase his talents. If I'm based in London, I love music from Diamond, but he's doing a concert in Dar es Salaam. I can't travel. It's too expensive to buy a ticket and all that. Imagine Diamond creates this experience in the metaverse, and all I need to do is put on a headset, and I'm there with my fellow lovers of Diamond music, enjoying that concert wherever I am in the world. Imagine the sort of economic opportunity that creates for Diamond and other creators like him. Imagine kids learning about the struggle of independence of our different nations here in Africa. Right now, they're learning from books. They need to read. But imagine you have a QR code, and then they scan something, and then that reenactment is projected in front of them. And it feels like they actually there in person, or they put on a headset, and then they're there with the fathers that were fighting for independence. Imagine how that learning experience could be transformed. Imagine our doctors. Right now, they need to operate on cadavers, which might not really get them to experience crisis in the operating theaters. Imagine if you have simulations that show different kinds of crisis in the operating theaters, and they're able to put on those headsets and learn and start getting experience of getting familiar with these different scenarios. Imagine how that could improve our health outcomes. Imagine our tourism industry, where people have to travel to Zanzibar to enjoy the amazing environment there. Imagine if the Tanzanian government could really replicate that environment within the metaverse, and then people that can't afford to travel can actually put on that headset and it feels like they're in Zanzibar. So these are all things that will come as a result of the metaverse. There's a lot of economic opportunities, social opportunities that will come from it. And it's really critical that we put in place the building blocks that would enable our people benefit from the metaverse. And we're not just saying this. There's a recent study by Analysis Group that estimates the economic growth that would result after 10 years of adoption of the metaverse. And right now, after 10 years of adoption, the metaverse will contribute about 3 trillion to the global economy. In Africa, it's about 40 billion of growth of US dollars after 10 years of adoption. And these are the sort of impacts that are similar to when we were talking about adoption of the internet, where we're saying penetration would create growth in your GDPs, and a lot of our governments started coming up with broadband plans. It's the same. So the metaverse will create a lot of economic opportunity, a lot of development for our countries. And similarly, as we came up with broadband plans years ago, we need to start coming up with metaverse strategies now. Some countries are already ahead of the curve. You have like the United Arab Emirates that recently published their metaverse strategy on how they can leverage the metaverse and create thousands of jobs and really drive that economic development. So Africa should do the same. Like Tanzania, like what are we doing? I know you're working on your digital economy strategy. Do we have a section there that talks about how we harness the metaverse to create jobs, to create economic opportunity for our Tanzanians, all the other Africans in the room? What are we doing on that side? Have we collaborated with industry to ensure that while we're developing our ICT strategies, we've put in place provisions that will enable entrepreneurs, innovators to leverage the metaverse and create that economic opportunity? So it's really critical, and that's why I think for those in the room, it's time for us to take the message out there and say, the internet is evolving. We're going to soon see the next iteration of the internet. What are we doing within our companies, within our countries to enable that this doesn't pass us by and we don't play catch up? We're right there from the start. From the Meta side, we're doing a number of things in Africa to really ensure that Africans have the right skills. to fully leverage the metaverse. We have the Future Africa XR grants where we supported creators to start creating content for the metaverse. And we recently launched the AR/VR Africa Metathon, which would equip innovators and the young people with skills on augmented reality and virtual reality and enable them start building applications or content or environments using those technologies for Africa, relevant to the Africa context. We also have the Spark AR program. Again, this is content that we've developed, and it equips young people, entrepreneurs, creators, developers with the skills in augmented reality. And then we're doing a lot of research where we're trying to study where are the bottlenecks, where are the gaps when it comes to the metaverse ecosystem in Africa, and what can we do as a community to ensure that all Africans really take part in this global effort to build the metaverse and start harnessing all of the tremendous opportunities that will come from the metaverse. These are logos of companies in Africa. They are already working on augmented reality and virtual reality technology. So there are quite a few, whether it's in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa. There are a lot of companies that have already started leveraging these technologies and doing amazing things in augmented reality and virtual reality. Just next door in Kenya, we have Black Rhino, who is doing a lot of work with virtual reality. So I think why I put up this slide is to say we're not just saying this as something futuristic. It's already here. We already have companies, African companies that are building for the metaverse, that are already working in this space. And as an industry, as policymakers, we need to ensure that these people have the right tools to continue to build and grow the opportunity for Africa. So we've talked about the metaverse, but I wanted to really talk a bit further about one of the critical building blocks that we see as is a current blocker to the adoption of the metaverse in Africa, and that's Wi-Fi. We don't have enough spectrum for metaverse type use cases. So this shows you the way augmented reality or virtual reality rendering works. So typically you have a device like a headset or glasses through which you can access those augmented reality or virtual reality environments. But the process in the video, the rendering would happen in another device. So whether it's your computer or your watch, the rendering doesn't happen in the wearable device, in the device you're using to see. It happens in another device. So it could be your laptop, it could be your computer, it could be your watch. And what happens is you need very high speeds, low latency communication between that device you're putting on to access those environments and the processing unit. And that's enabled through Wi-Fi. Those connections are enabled through Wi-Fi. Currently, the Wi-Fi speeds do not allow us to fully leverage or fully benefit from those experiences, those immersive experiences. What we're now seeing is a trend across the world moving to Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 is dependent on the 6 gigahertz band. Wi-Fi 6 presents advantages over the previous iterations of Wi-Fi because it has very high speeds and low latency, which enables you to fully benefit from those immersive experiences. In Africa, we do not have this spectrum. So places around the world are making this spectrum available for the deployment of Wi-Fi 6. But currently, Africa, a lot of our countries haven't started the process. And there's another slide that I'll show you, but that's the current state. So if we really want to benefit from the metaverse and all these amazing use cases that we've described, we need to ensure that Africans, the innovators, people have access to Wi-Fi 6. And without Wi-Fi 6, without that 6 gigahertz band, they won't be able to fully benefit and harness that economic opportunity coming from the metaverse. But it's not just about augmented reality or virtual reality use cases. We also have different applications that are coming up that require Wi-Fi 6. Whether it's UHD video streaming, high-speed tethering, in-vehicle entertainment, all of these are dependent on high speeds, low latency connections, and that's Wi-Fi 6. So we don't want a situation where Imagine a situation where when you travel overseas to the US, to the UK, you have all of these applications available to you, but your kids or your parents that you've left back home cannot experience such experiences. That's why it's really important that we put in place that enabling building block, that Wi-Fi 6 gigahertz spectrum, to ensure that this experience is not just the metaverse, but other high-speed use cases that are coming out are available to our people in Africa. What about rural connectivity? We have situations, or we're seeing currently across Africa, satellite providers using Wi-Fi to provide connectivity in the most rural areas. As we all know, rural connectivity continues to be a challenge in Africa, and opening up the band and really enabling Wi-Fi 6 would also ensure that our brothers and sisters in the rural areas also benefit from these amazing use cases that are coming up. So again, we don't want to create a situation where it's just the people in the cities that can access some of these metaverse use cases or some of the more innovative use cases, but we also want people in rural areas to access this. And it's possible. With pairing satellite and Wi-Fi 6, they can also access some of these amazing use cases. So we're not just talking about people in the most well-off areas, but we're talking about people everywhere in Africa. And that's why opening up the band is really critical, because without that 6 gigahertz spectrum, we're not able to ensure people benefit from all these amazing use cases that are coming up. This shows you the current state of 6 gigahertz license exempt allocation across the world. It's a little bit dated because right now it shows that there's no license exempt allocation of the 6 gigahertz band in Africa. But I think we did this slide a couple of months ago, but since then, about 2 countries have opened up the band. I think Kenya has opened up its lower 6 gigahertz band. Namibia has done the same. We are aware that Ghana is currently in consultations to open up the lower part of the band. But if you look at across the world, you'll see whether it's in Europe or the US, they've started opening up the band. The US has already opened up the full band, while Europe has opened up the lower portion of the band and is currently working in consultations and discussions to explore the option of opening up the upper part of the band, hence the full band. But it's only Africa that hasn't. We continue to lag behind. And it's a real shame, because I think most of 2021, under the umbrella of the African Telecommunications Union, African countries work together with industry to come up with frameworks, recommendations on how to open up the lower part of the band. And that was published, I think, towards the end of last year. But since then, apart from Namibia or Kenya, a lot of our countries haven't started that process of even opening up the lower part of the band. And we encourage the administrations, the policymakers in the room, please reach out to your spectrum administration guys and ask them what's the holdup in opening up the lower part of the band. This is my last slide, and it's really recommendations. The upper part of the band, so the band is about 1,200 megahertz. And 500 megahertz constitutes the lower part of the band. So that's 5925 to 6425 megahertz. And currently, like I mentioned, the ATU has issued recommendations that will enable African administrations open up that lower part of the band. It's called Recommendation 005, ATUR Recommendation 005. Apart from Namibia and countries like Namibia and Kenya, a lot of our countries in Africa are not implementing this recommendation. So we recommend the administrations in the room, please, I can send you the link to this recommendation. It's time for you to start implementing this recommendation. There's nothing blocking you from implementing this recommendation and opening up the lower part of the band. On the upper part of the band, it's an agenda item under the World Radio Conference 23 that's happening next year. And there's a lot of preparatory meetings that are happening currently across the continent. A lot of our African nations are thinking of designating that band for 5G or IMT. So you don't want a situation where by taking a decision, you're jeopardizing existing services in the band, but Wi-Fi can coexist with those existing services. And in addition to that, by opening up the band to Wi-Fi, you enable the African creators, the innovators, the startups to fully leverage Wi-Fi 6 and start building for the metaverse. So we recommend that African nations, as you continue to work on studying the issue of the upper 6 gigahertz band, and before you make a decision next year, you should strongly consider leaving that band and making it available on an unlicensed basis and not designating 5G or IMT within that band. So I'll stop there. I have a video that would hopefully bring to life some of the things that I've said about how important the metaverse would be to transforming our lives. I think I've gone on for a bit, and maybe some things I've said sound boring, and who was bored?
You want to take some questions also from the audience, or after your video?
After the video, but hopefully, I thank you for being so kind. At least you've made me feel like I wasn't boring, so thanks for that. But the one key message that I would like to leave you before I play the video is the next evolution of the internet is the metaverse. We all know how the mobile internet transformed our lives. That transformation in our lives, when the metaverse will become mainstream, would even be more pronounced. The metaverse is really going to transform the world. And the decisions we make today would enable where we are as Africa within the metaverse. If we don't take the right decisions around key building blocks like 6 gigahertz, while the world will be moving forward and really fully leveraging the metaverse and all of the economic opportunities, we're talking about 3 trillion of 3 trillion US dollars of economic opportunity in the world. Africa will not be able to leverage or harness that economic opportunity because today we've decided to not designate or not open up the 6 gigahertz band and enable our innovators, our creators to build for the metaverse. So that's really key. So that's the key message. So let's take the right decision today. Let's make that 6 gigahertz spectrum band available so that our people can build and fully benefit from the metaverse. On that note, I'll stop and play the video.
I'm the head of education here at Johnson & Johnson Institute, and our responsibility is to train surgeons all around the world. Today, we have a real problem that on a global basis, there's not enough access to safe healthcare because we don't have enough surgeons trained. VR tools like Oculus can help us solve this global crisis.
With Oculus and VR, it's allowed us to really shrink the time in which we can put somebody into an experience. We can now immerse them into hundreds of different actual life scenarios. So from day one, they're providing.
My name is Suvatra Mukherjee, Procurement Director from 3W Networks and also the group of companies. Just wanted to ask how the pricing model would work. You talked about some numbers, 3 trillion, and for Africa it's 40 billion. How the pricing model would work, that's the first question. Second question is, when you talk about the VR and the headsets you're putting in, what would be the guiding principles to implement the health and safety side? Is there any directive that how long a VR headset could be used, or how you would that impact the health and safety?
Again, important points. When it comes to the modeling, so I think it's the analysis group that did research and estimated the impact of metaverse adoption after 10 years. So I can't really speak to the modeling. But in terms of pricing, the people that are involved in the space would come up with their own pricing. So this is just a more, what would you say, macroeconomic outlook of what metaverse adoption could mean to the world. But let's say Diamond creates his concert in the metaverse. It's up to him now to determine, okay, for people to access this metaverse experience, I could charge them $5, I could charge them $2. So it's up to that. It's up to the creators that will be creating these experiences to come up with pricing. Health and safety, that's a key point. And at least for us, we do have some guidelines on what you need to do when you're trying to use or navigate the metaverse safely. So for instance, if you put it on the Oculus device, we would advise that you set up a space, a safe space with no objects next to you so that you could really explore, because you're so immersed in this different world that if you set up like next to a wall, you could be moving around and knock yourself on the wall. So there's some guidelines around that, but also it's like I said, it's still very early days, and Meta doesn't believe that it's the only company that will come up with a metaverse. We believe it's going to be a joint effort, and that's why we're advocating about it, but we're also open to listening to you. So if you have specific concerns, please feel free to share, and we'll relay those back to our engineers that are actually working on it, on things like health, on issues like this. One key part about the health and safety and how long you can wear the device. Currently, and that's why it's also important that we need that 6 gigahertz band, because the current Wi-Fi, as you all know, we use the same spectrum. There's a lot of interference, which means that when you put it on that headset, after some time, because of the interference, you start getting sick, VR sickness. So we need a new band with more spectrum, with less interference, so that you can put it for longer. But again, we want to do it in a safe manner. So these are things that we're still studying, and to ensure that, again, with feedback from stakeholders like you, we can continue to build and ensure that the metaverse doesn't just deliver value to our people, but it's also safe for our people to use.
Thanks, Fargani. Question from Brad.
Great, hi. Thanks, great presentation, my brother. I assume we...
I think we're the best dressed people in the room.
I seem to agree, and the best facial hair as well. Thanks so much for the great presentation. So I come from 10, 12 years ago, we were doing magazines in South Africa. We did Rolling Stone magazine, and we did AR applications on the covers, and had music videos popping up. But you talk about AR and VR here, but all the applications you're showing are all VR based. Is there anything new happening in the AR space? Because it seems to be a fad that died and it's never really taken off. So what makes me think is like the question around, is VR going to go in the same direction, or is it actually going to take off this time?
Yes,
so, thanks.
So I think the video, the reason why I showed the videos is because in that video, so there's so many videos, but I chose that video because it shows a number of use cases for the virtual reality, whether it was health, logistics, mining, just so that people in the audience can have a view of how this could transform different sectors. But in AR, there's a lot happening. Right now, we have designers, like I think about 3 weeks ago, I was in Lagos, and I attended a conference and one of the speakers there was an AR designer, and what he's doing is he's designing augmented reality experiences for people that shop. So it's being used a lot for commerce. So right now, if you do a lot of electronic commerce, you buy online, sometimes the things that you buy, when it's delivered, you're like, this isn't what I ordered. So what a lot of people in augmented reality are doing is they're able to create an augmented reality simulation where you can try on the clothes and see how it fits you before you actually buy, and that's really helping e-commerce grow. So there are quite a few other use cases, and to be honest, the way we see it at Meta is they go hand in hand. So it's not like one will be over the other. There will be scenarios where augmented reality content or applications make more sense. I think you saw the simulation of children learning about dinosaurs where they were able. So there's a lot. So it will depend on the creators on what the scenario looks like for you to determine what's the best way yeah. And again, Spark AR is really augmented reality. That's what we're doing. Like the Spark AR thing I mentioned, that's a lot of around augmented reality. Yeah.
Here's a question from here. Hang on. Yeah.
Yep. I think it's exciting to see Meta in Africa. 2 questions. First off, is there any plan, or if there is already a data center that Meta uses in Africa? Or all the data centers that Meta uses is in US or in Europe, right? What's the plan? That's first question. Second question, in terms of pricing, the Quest, for example, it's $300 plus, right, dollars. So is there any plan to assess Africa to manufacture those devices in Africa, right? The cost of shipment and all that, including tax, right, is high. If it is 300 plus in Europe and US, it will be double, if not more, in Africa. So is there any plan to assist manufacturers in Africa so that the price would be lower?
I was having such an easy time with easy questions then. Someone had to come and ask a difficult question. I think on the data center side, what we're doing is we're very supportive of carrier-neutral data centers. With our 2 Africa cable landing across so many countries in Africa and hopefully in Tanzania in a couple of months, we really committed to ensuring that ecosystem around data centers grows and flourishes. So we're supporting carrier-neutral data centers. So it's not just a meta data center. It's a data center where everybody can access and connect and really benefit from that international connectivity that comes through subsea cables like to Africa. So I think that's where we are going when it comes to data centers in Africa. Where can we support the establishment of a carrier-neutral center so that it doesn't just host Meta, but it hosts a lot of other companies that maybe typically might not be able to set up their own data center. And we think that would really help transform the internet ecosystem of Africa. When it comes to devices and the costs of accessing those devices, as you know, a lot of those costs in Africa are mostly custom duties or taxes, as you've rightly said. So that's where, as we said, it's not just Meta or industry that would help build the metaverse. Policymakers have a key role to play. So if, let's say, Tanzania is keen to have the metaverse flourish, and the people in Tanzania might not be able to access these devices if it's $500 or $600 because of taxes, they could actually come up with waivers that will enable them get the devices at almost the same cost like what is available in the West. And we've seen this happen. I think Chad recently waived custom duty on computers and smartphones, and we expect that will transform the landscape. And I think a couple of years ago, Kenya did the same, and that actually pushed the Kenyan ICT sector to grow because they were able to look at it from a long-term perspective and say, by us waiving this custom duty, these taxes, people who have more devices use the internet, and that will grow our GDP. So something similar could happen here. But again, these are all conversations. These are still very early days, and really, the raison there, why we wanted to have this conversation with you, a key message is it's not just Meta or the companies in the West that will build the metaverse. It's people in Africa, it's governments in Africa, innovators in Africa that will build the metaverse. And for us to do that, we need to start looking at what are the unique context challenges in Africa and start building initiatives, whether it's policy, regulatory, or even taxation. What are the things that we can do from an African perspective to enable this metaverse to take off on the continent?
Thanks, Fargani. We need to move on to a second workshop now by the Internet Society. But a big round of applause, please, for Fargani from Meta. You'll be around.
Thank you for asking for the applause. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.